So, line types and layers. I went over a little bit of this in the last video that I created. However, I'm going to be going a bit more in depth with this one. So, you may have seen it in the other video where I clicked on this layer manager button, or you can use the layer command to pull up the layer properties manager, which allows you to work with all your layers. So, by default, you already have the 0 layer, which can never be deleted, but you can turn it off or hide it or whatever. So, creating a layer. Okay, easiest way for me is to use this new layer button. You can also use the associated hotkey, which is Alt-N, but I'm going to just use that. So, anytime that you have multiple layers, you want to be naming your layers. You don't just want to have layer 1, 2, 3, and 4, because what if you have 50 layers? Then, okay, do I put this line on layer 40 or 41? I don't remember. So I'm going to start by creating a basic object layer. Okay, that's what I'm going to call it. Okay, I'm going to go over each column individually. So this column here, the first one, is whether or not the layer is on or off. A layer which is off does not display, nor is it editable. Okay, nor can you put anything on it either. A frozen layer, which is this next one, okay, a frozen layer, you can not see it, nor can you edit it, but you can put things on it, if I remember correctly. Locked layer, you can put things on it, and you can see it, but you can't edit it. So that's the differences between these three, and they're all very useful. The color, okay. As you may have seen in my other video, I like blue, but for the object layer. However, due to the complaints, I'm going to go with cyan, a bit of a brighter color. And line types, we're going to get to that here in a bit, because while our object layer, we use continuous lines, lines that don't have any breaks, dashes, marks, letters, or anything like that. Some of our other layers, we might need them. Line weight, okay. Default, well, I'm going to actually set a line weight for this one. Okay, I'm going to put it to, actually I think, 0.6 millimeter. Okay, so like if you were drawing a layer by hand drafting, usually your objects would be about 0.6 millimeter, maybe a little more or a little less depending on the pencil or pen you're using. Okay, transparency. Okay, I don't use that a lot on 2D drafting, but that can be useful if you're using expansive layers or pictures that you want to see only part of the time, or if you want to see through them. Plotter style, that's related directly to what color you're using. Okay, plot. This is good if you're using an object, or if you're wanting a layer that you can both see, edit, and create objects in, but that you don't want it to print. For example, if you created a construction layer, this would be very good to turn off. Okay, viewport freeze, the viewport. Yeah, the viewport, or the particular layer is frozen in any viewport that you create after the fact. Viewport is used in layouts and paper space, not model space. So far we've only been in model space, so we're not going to worry about that. And the description, that's something that you can make by custom. Okay, so if you, sometimes it'll allow you to edit it. There we go. So, the object. Okay, so just typing in a description there. Alrighty then. These other buttons up here that were here, I was just using the new layer option. The others are to create a new layer frozen in all viewports. It's just, basically with a freeze button on. Delete a layer. So if I wanted to get rid of a layer, I could use this one to get rid of it. and set current. The current layer is what you are actively drawing on whenever you create something. If you notice, the 0 layer still has the green check mark. That means my 0 layer is my default, or is my current layer. So if I start drawing right now, it's going to be on the 0 layer. It's going to be white, not cyan, like the object layer. If I want to change layers, I can either select the layer through the Properties Manager and click the check mark, or this drop down up here that you may have just noticed changed colors, okay, between object and 0. Another way is also double clicking on the name of the layer as well. We'll do the same thing in the Properties Manager. So, now, most drawings have more than just one layer, right? You're going to have the object itself, you're going to have any construction lines you make, you'll have hidden lines, maybe phantom lines. This is just mechanical drawing. What if you're like doing a site or a architecture? Then you'll have other line types like gas lines, plumbing lines, things like that. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it my hidden layer. Okay. Now for this one, I'm going to change its color. I'm going to change it red. Okay. Line type. Okay. You may see some of these line types already in here. You may not. Okay. So I'm going to load the line type associated with the hidden line. What's a hidden line? It's a series of dashes, right? Well, I could either use one of these here, which don't look like they have the right spacing, or I can scroll down. Okay. And I see some of these are named. See, we have the gas lines. Hidden. Okay, well, we have these 3 hidden lines, hidden 0.5, and hidden 2 times. And these are different scales of the same line type. Sometimes it can make it easier instead of changing the individual line type scale, which we'll get to that here in a bit. So I'm going to select the hidden line type, hit OK. So notice continuous is still highlighted. So in order to get hidden, I need to click on it, obviously, and hit OK. Now, my hidden lines, I want them to be half the thickness of my object lines. Okay. So, and I don't want it to be named the object because it is the hidden object. Yeah, descriptions are completely optional. They don't actually have to be there because the only way you're going to see them is if you actually have the DWG where they're written in, or maybe the associated PDF document, which PDFs do show me your layers. So, let's see. Here, maybe this one, I'll call it center lines. Okay, well, maybe just center. It'll save some space. And yeah, I like green center lines, personally. And your center lines have their own unique line type. You have long dash, short dash, long dash. Okay, here again we have center, center 2, and center 2 times. Okay, or center times 2. So I'm going to just use the default center. Click on it again, hit OK. And center lines are 0.3 millimeters. I'm just going to delete the description. I don't actually need one. Yeah. Okay. What else might we actually use? Well, there are construction lines. Yeah, why not we use that? Construction. I'm going to make those yellow. And those, I'm going to give them a continuous line type. Okay. The actual length of these doesn't really matter to me because, or thickness of them, because I'm going to make them not plot. If I click on the little plotter there, puts a little cancel symbol next to it, which means they're not going to plot. So if I were to draw something with my construction layer, I can use it to line up my objects for my center lines, hidden lines, and object lines for to print correctly. Another layer might be a text layer, okay, which we haven't gotten to text yet, but it would be good to have one anyways. Just a default white and black continuous line type, and maybe a 0.3 millimeter line. Okay, and we want it to print. So one thing to be careful of whenever you're creating new layers, you always have at least one layer selected at all times. You can't actually deselect a layer. So whenever you create a new layer, it creates a layer basically the duplicate of the one you have selected. So that's something to be careful about whenever you do that. Here I am clicking on random things. Sorry about that. Okay, so now if I were to draw something in these layers, okay, I have my object layer currently selected. So I'm going to draw a somewhat simple object. Just a little bit of tracking there. Okay, let's say there's a hole that runs through this object. Okay, I'm just kind of ad-libbing this. I don't actually have any object that I'm trying to draw. Okay, so if there's a hole that comes halfway through it, I'd want a center line to depict that, right? Okay, and then I would want my hidden lines to show where it is, right? Okay. So that's some of my lines, not all of them. I haven't built any construction lines or text objects. So why don't I do a construction line? Now, you may have gotten into multi-view drawings already. Maybe, maybe not. But this would definitely be useful whenever you do get into them. Okay. Alrighty, so if we assume this is a very rectangular object, I can use my object layers to just start drawing somewhere. Straight down here, across some variable quantity, and back up and over. Okay, you've got, let's see, this line here needs to come across. Like that. And then it's going to be that circle, right? Somewhere. Maybe right here. See about that size. And I'm just going to trim away a little bit of this here. Okay, well that looks a little busy, doesn't it? You know, with all those yellow lines in there. But if I were to plot this, okay, or print, however you want to refer to it, see, to PDF, okay, I'm just going to preview it. Okay, notice my yellow lines aren't there. It's actually rather clean, isn't it? We have different line types. Okay, my object lines are twice as big as my hidden lines. Okay, I do have one small issue though, is that my hidden lines and center lines are on top of my object lines. Okay, which technically is not a good thing. So one way to do that is draw order. This is just a simple little trick. If you right-click to pull up the context menu, then go to the Draw Order submenu and say Send to Back. Okay, it doesn't really change much. It's kind of hard to see cyan on green, but If we then go plot it again, hit preview, okay, now my object layers go over, or the object line goes over the hidden line and center line. Okay. There's not really a way to create your layers to automatically draw over one another, but because you can have some objects that are above the objects of the same layer so that you don't have conflicts between which objects of which layer you want on top of one another. So, no major issue. That's the basics of layers and line types, but let's go over a slightly different issue that I've seen rather repetitively. Okay. Say if I just kind of, I'm going to use the scale command here and just scale everything up by like a factor of something big, maybe 20. Zoom out. Now suddenly we have this issue here. Okay, whenever we're at large scale zooms, okay, in model space anyways, the issue is I can't see my line types anymore. My hidden lines aren't hidden lines anymore, they're just continuous. And even if I were to plot it and look at it, see there's still just thick lines. There's no actual line type to them. So, one thing to use is line type scale. Okay, it's a system variable. Multiple ways to get to it, however I prefer just typing it in, LT scale. Okay, and it asks, okay, what new line type factor is there? Okay, right now, since I had, my line types looked great whenever they were small. Now that they're big, I can't see them. Okay, that means that my line types are too small, so I need to increase the scale factor. Well, since I scaled everything up by 20, obviously my line type should also scale by 20. There we go, and I have my line types again. So that's not bad, in which case I can print it and submit it as I see fit. So, I guess that's line types and layers in a very short, but hopefully effective video. Yep, good day.